I, yeah, there's a lot there, right? My wife is a teacher, right? And so I'm a very strong mentality, right? I have a very strong personality, I guess. And if I feel like someone is intentionally trying to get one over on me, right? Or trying to bully me into a situation, once I identify it, like it ends right there, right? Like, you can try all you want, but once I figure out your scheme against me,
It's
like
over.
it ends right there. We're handling this. I'm going to call you out on a phone call. I'm going to call you out on an email to your director and to their VP,
Mhm.
right? I've done all of those things before. Typically ends pretty well. Typically, my wife, she'll come home and she'll talk about something, that she's dealing with coworkers at school and stuff like that. And I'm just like, I approach it obviously from my mentality. I'm like, you got to stick up for yourself. You need to get in their face. And she's a small, 5'2" Asian lady. Like, I'm like, you need to get in their face, tell them, all this different stuff. And she's like, you understand, I work at a school. I'm like, man, I would still do it, like, but that's like a difference in mentality, right? Where in the teams, that sort of thing is acceptable. That's like the lowest level, right? In IT, that's a little bit more aggressive, but at the same time, I've had teams of primarily women before where they would go into these meetings because I can't be in 10 places at once, right? And so I would send them into the meeting and I would tell them, they're going to ask these questions. They want to talk about this stuff. Here's your answers. We'll work through them, and we'll develop the answer and whatnot, right? Prepare them really well for going into it. They'll go into it and they'll say, exactly what I told them to say, right? And everyone, on this opposing team will just completely dispute everything
Yeah.
that they said, even though it's 100% correct. And I mean, I had to do this a couple times where I would have to sit down with the person and, tell them, like, I would give them then the exact same answer, that they were given during that meeting. And when they accepted it, I'll be like, well, what's the difference when my team says it? Right? Don't
Exactly.
you think that they're a reflection of me? Like they're saying it because I told them to say it and it's the correct thing to do. Like I'm not telling you to do something that's incorrect, or going to put the company at risk or anything like that. And, that whole mentality kind of shifts a bit when it's like, I kind of discounted this person because of, how they looked or how they acted or their age or gender, whatever it might be. Right.
Or their technical acumen. That's another one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, I'm right there with you, man. I've been in plenty of meetings where I've been sidelined and it's just like, you're just stupid, right? I have a person that I work with daily, extremely smart man. And there are days I'm like, dude, the reason you're not successful the way you want to be is because your personal acumen. Like you need to know how to just talk to people. And I think if in IT, more specifically in cyber, if you can tell a story and you're nice, and you're good, you're decent, not the best, not the worst, you're decent, I think you're gonna kill it.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that you learn when you're going up the ladder, so to speak, in security is being able to tell that story so that all levels can understand what's going on. Right. Like that that took me a couple of years, honestly, to learn it. And I'm still mastering it. Right. But, you need that executive buy-in. You need the technical expertise buy-in. You need the middle managers buy-in, right? Like you need all these people buy-in and they all view this information differently. They all want to receive it differently in different formats and whatnot. Right. So how do you tell the story in a way that explains, why we should encrypt this data to an executive? Whereas I don't have to explain why we need to encrypt it to a technical person. I need to explain how to do it, right? Maybe that's the part that I need to explain. And I think identifying that early on is pretty key. But I do kind of want to circle back, right? To in your story and similar with mine, right? Once you identified the area you wanted to go in, you really stopped at nothing to go and do, side work that you had skills in and whatnot. And, similar to myself, right? When I identified I wanted to get into security, I started doing everything I could on the side to actually make that happen. Right. And it didn't happen overnight. And I think that's what a lot of people get discouraged from, right? And in the teams, right? A lot of that training takes years. You know, like I hear Sean Ryan talk about how it took him 2 years to get through training, right? And then he finally gets to the teams and he thinks he's just going to go and, operate and things like that. And then he's sitting on a bench for, 6 months, 8 months while he's then learning everything else. And he's like, man, I just trained for 3 years basically to do this job and I can't even do it, and it's an interesting mind shift. Not everyone understands it.
Your ego is your worst and best enemy, right? Even myself, you go through the pipeline 2 years, that's all the queues and this, that, and the other, your MOSs, your specialty training, whatnot.